Hey y'all, and welcome to season 3 of the Be a Boss Coaching podcast. My name is Beatriz. I'm a business and entrepreneur coach, and I'm the founder of Be a Boss Coaching. In this podcast season, I am thrilled to have a brand new lineup of guests from diverse fields, each bringing their own unique products and services to the table. Not only are we featuring inspiring business entrepreneurs and their stories, but we'll also dive into the skills and innovations that are integral in building a thriving business. Get ready for topics that are essential for your entrepreneurial journey. In this season, we'll cover everything from healing to AI to creativity to building a private practice. Stay tuned and don't forget to visit beabosscoaching.com where you can read our other blogs, listen to our other podcast episodes, and join our newsletter where you'll find out about new services and offers and exclusive discounts and so much more. Thank you so much for being here, and I hope you enjoy the show. Thank you so much for being here, Yovana. I'm so glad to have you on the Be a Boss Coaching podcast. I know when we last spoke, I was really intrigued about everything that you were talking about in regards to AI, and there's so much conversation that's happening. So if you could first, before we go into the whole conversation around AI, if you could let us know your name and your business, and we can get started.
Yeah, my name is Yovana Rosales, and my business includes teaching women of color on how to leverage AI to either scale their business or profession. And to niche it even a little more, I am now integrating mental health into the AI realm. So, creating some AI powered visualization meditations for folks to be able to purchase to uplift their spirits. I think it's something that we don't give ourselves permission. And by that, I don't mean like, oh, it's okay to do this. I mean by time. We're all very time constricted. We're always on the verge of burnout. And so, why not be able to give yourself that time of 20 minutes and be able to use AI to meditate and get you in a better state of mind?
Wow, I definitely would love to get into that because there's so much conversation around AI, and it's such a rapidly increasing technology. It's a new technology, but it's growing. So I'm so excited for you to be here. So thank you for introducing yourself. So I know we've been saying AI a lot. So for folks who may not know, and I'm pretty sure most people know, but just to give an overview, what is AI? Can you, in your words and in like your definition of AI, let us know what that means?
Well, AI has actually been around since the 1950s. The first machine that was AI was two classrooms huge. And when I give my workshops, I actually show the picture of the 1950s AI machine. Then we fast forward into the 2000s. That's when the first AI machine was brought onto Jeopardy.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
And yeah, ended up having a showcase. Like there was two human being contestants. Then we had it was IBM who had their machine on. It went great, right? it
Mm-hmm.
was it was like the talk of the town during that time. The reason why it's booming and it's a hot topic, or it's shiny object syndrome, if you will, is because we as a human society now have access to technology wherever we go, whether
Yeah.
that's in the palm of our hand,
Mm-hmm.
off of our smartphones, whether that's off of our laptops, or sitting in corporate America on an actual computer. So it's been around for a very long time. It has obviously been evolving. It's just now, because of the fact that we have access to it and access to information on how updates are, how upgrades are going, how everything is consistently changing, it has gotten so much more buzz.
Mm. Gotcha. Yeah. I mean, I'm not surprised that it's been around for a very long time, and the fact that it's booming now, it makes sense, especially because we, as a society and community, the access to information, the internet, even how we say that there's um, you know, internet in the palm of our hands, like the smartphone and all of that. I think now, just now, if you think back to like 2010, it is when everyone has access to it. Like I think iPhones
Yeah.
and even smart and touch screen type of technology wasn't accessible to everyone, not even in early 2000s or even early 2010s. And I think now, because it is accessible to pretty much anyone, it's I can see why it's booming and why AI is in that avalanche of access as well.
And we've all been using AI for a while, whether we've known it or not. Back navigation is a form of AI.
Yeah.
When you are forming an email, and now it does it so much better, but I want to say maybe 3 years ago when it first started, it would try to guess the next two letters for you.
Mm-hmm.
That's album recognition, right? That's a type of AI.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been using it either on the daily, whether you're Google map questing, what ways we've all been using it for a while. It's just now there's different, and also we're getting to learn that there's so much different types of AI that sometimes you're like, oh, we don't know how to use this, not even realizing, no, but you've been using it.
Yeah.
You've been helping sustain it. You've been helping the algorithms on it or of it. So yeah, not a new concept. Just again, the fact that we have access to these tools and resources instantaneously is what's been making it boom.
Yeah, yeah. And I just want to say, I know we've been saying AI, which stands for artificial intelligence. So I just wanted to put that out there real quick. So I do want to go into how you came into the journey of AI. How did you decide to become an AI educator? And I know we talked a little bit about it offline when we were connecting, but if you can let the audience know what's your journey with coming into the AI world and then educating people on it.
I always say I don't know if artificial intelligence chose me or if I chose artificial intelligence. And it might be both ways. It might be a two-way street, just like any type of relationship.
Yeah.
This was my relationship with artificial
Yeah.
intelligence. So pre-COVID, I used to work in events, so I would travel nine or 6 to 9 months out of the year. Then, right, COVID happened, everything shut down. Didn't really know who I was, and then just started finding, with other help of other women, started finding women communities, Latina specifically
Mm-hmm.
based.
Yeah.
There was an opportunity to become a community manager, and I was encouraged to do it by the director. Ended up being great. And so what I realized with community is you are able to excel in all parts of your life. I was going through a really dark time in that space where I lost 6 people
Mm.
in a time frame of a year and a half. Two of those folks I lost within 16 hours apart. I lost 2 friendships of 10 years plus, in addition to losing a relationship. And so it kind of just all was trickling down. It was very heavy.
Mm-hmm.
And in the Latina sector, you really don't talk about grief and you really don't know how to navigate grief. And so with the community, I was able to find safe spaces, be vulnerable, let them know what was happening. And so there was so much learning and so much deprogramming that was happening at the time. And just seeing so many women share resources and share tools, and not just during my grief moment, but how was I going to pivot? Right, we weren't sure when the world was going to open back up again. So what was I good at? Right, like what was my calling? And it seemed to be able to connect people, and it seemed to be also able to provide safe spaces for folks, show up and be vulnerable, share my stories to see how maybe it can help someone going through the same tough time that I was going through. And so I ended up having a business of being a community builder or community manager.
Yeah.
So was doing building communities for tech spaces, spaces, Latina spaces. And then last summer is when I started. So summer of 2023, started seeing a lot of articles. I feel like it was every other article that was out there was AI is going to take over your job. AI is going to take over your job,
Mm-hmm.
like almost doomsday. And I think, or I don't think, I know for sure, once I started seeing that, the PTSD of losing my job, losing
Yeah.
my pay, right, losing my, like, it all kind of started coming back. And so I would ask other Latina entrepreneurs, do you think it's going to take over our jobs? Like, do you think we're not going to have something to fall back on come 2, 3 years from now? And the consensus that I kept getting was, I don't think so, but I don't know.
Mm,
And then the real question became, well, why don't we know? And it's because we're not asked to be in those spaces.
mm-hmm,
We're not asked to be programmers of artificial intelligence. We're not asked to be data scientists for or for AI. We're not even asked to be beta testers for AI. And so that's when I really started realizing, this is going to be a big problem.
yeah.
In corporate America, Latinas only make 53 cents to a white man's dollar. If we're not using the same tools and resources that the tech bros are using, our wage gap is only going to get wider.
Mm-hmm,
We only make the average like entrepreneur for Latinas is 31,800, while our white counter female parts are making 33,000 and some change. So we're still behind when it comes to whether you're a professional or an entrepreneur. You're still not making what we should be
mm,
making. And so that's when I realized, you know what? Someone needs to, like, I need to do this. I came from a place of fear. I thought I was going to lose my job. And then I started realizing, no, we're all going to lose our jobs, or we're all going to get left behind.
mm,
Because what you're not going to do is you're not going to lose your job to AI, but you will get looked past if you don't know how to use AI
mm-hmm.
in your profession or in your personal business.
Yes, yes. And that is the perfect summary of, I just think it's not just AI. In general, women have been excluded from spaces, entrepreneurship spaces, even like the tech.com boom that happened in the 90s and the 2000s. Women were excluded from entrepreneurial ventures and startups. And we have this idea of what an entrepreneur looks like. I'm just reading this book, and reading all about this and the history of like how I can't even say it right.
Silicon Valley.
Silicon Valley. I was just reading. I don't know if you've ever heard of that book, Brotopia. Uh,
No,
oh,
but please tell
I
me.
mean,
I'm here for it.
it's definitely a book I think all women should read, especially in entrepreneurship, because it just really talks about the history and how women, especially women, were historically marginalized and excluded from these spaces, and it still continues to be. And even more so now with the advancement of AI, how all of the mentalities and what we perceive as good entrepreneurs are these broy, programmy, nerdy type of like boys or men
They
or
all have that
whatever.
look, right?
Right.
Yeah, like when you think entrepreneur, you're not thinking the woman that has her hair tied back because she hasn't had the time to comb her hair,
Right.
who has the hoop earrings on,
Right.
that comes in with a t-shirt. Like we're definitely not thinking her.
Yeah.
We're thinking about Brads, the Chads, right? The Tobys. And it's unfortunate. I just took out this book a few days ago, and I'm going away on vacation, and I'm really excited to read it. It's called, since we're speaking of books, it's called Invisible Women: Data Bias in a World Designed for Men. And
Mm.
the author is Caroline Criado Perez. So definitely we'll share it with you so you can put it in your show notes. But even the title alone,
Yeah.
right? Like, and that's why, like, and I know that we're going to get further into like the biases and the discrimination within artificial intelligence, but just it's not, we're never the ones that are represented. It's
Right.
always someone else.
Yeah.
And so it was it was, I guess it was just like, again, I don't know who called who. I think it's just one of those like marriages where it just kind of, you flow and you go with it. And I
Yeah.
think we ended up just kind of choosing each other.
Yeah.
And I just want folks to know, your listeners, right? I'm self-taught.
Mm-hmm.
I'm self-made,
Yeah.
and it all came from a place of fear. And then fear became research. Research became curiosity. Curiosity became education.
Mm-hmm.
And now here I am creating education for other women.
Yeah.
And so what I want to say on that aspect is, don't be afraid or don't neglect your fear.
Mm.
I think it's something that also we're not really taught, like, oh, like just do it, or this, that, and the third. And it's like, no, no, no. I sat with it. I acknowledged it. And then kind of just came up with a plan of like, okay, I can be fearful, but I can be brave and learn.
Mm-hmm.
I am fearful, but I can be courageous and start putting myself in spaces where there's no one really that looks like me, that sounds like me, that even came up with the same upbringing. Um, and just kind of like repeating those mantras in my head, like acknowledge the fear, acknowledge the uncertainty, but take the courageous, brave steps to get where you want to be.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm glad that that is the forefront of being putting yourself in that situation, or putting yourself in spaces where you might be the only one, the only like woman of color, because most women, especially women of color, black women, brown women, will not seek out advancement or jobs in technology, or even look for the tools that other very successful businesses are using, because like you said, we don't have that access, or we're afraid to put ourselves in these circles or communities where this information is flowing, and where it could really help us. So I'm glad that that you acknowledge it, and that you're bringing also education around it, because it is very AI, even though it's been around for a long time, it feels foreign unless you're like, really reading about it, really figuring out how is this made, who is making this, who is creating these. And I listened to a statistic the other day where I think it was like in 2022 or 23, where there was maybe a few thousand companies that were created by AI. And like a year later, it was like hundreds of thousands of companies created by AI, just like in the
I
span of
wish
like a year.
I wish I knew the data. I remember reading it, and I know I should have jotted it down. But now, present day, it's in the thousands, but thousands of AI apps are being launched a day.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not a span. It's not thousands in a week.
Yeah.
It's not thousands in a month. It's thousands in a day.
Yeah.
And so even that is scary because here in the United States, we don't have laws, rules, and regulations
Mm-hmm.
on how one, these platforms are being created, and two, where's the security in all these platforms. And so yes, we have this technology in the tip of our fingers, but there also needs to be some rules and regulations. The EU is doing a great job on it. They're implementing some really great stuff on it. But I mean, capitalism in the US, it's just
Yeah.
like that's
It's gonna go out of control.
given, given.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. And so, how long is it going to take them to put up rules, standards, regulations, procedures, laws?
Yeah.
They're right now, from what I've seen, is they're leaving it up to the states.
Yeah.
And so even that, right, like my business, I don't create artificial intelligence platforms, but if I were working out of the state of Illinois, it would look very, very different than I would assume a Wyoming or an Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
And then California, what would that look like? So if someone is deciding to do some type of artificial intelligence platform creation, I would definitely say keep that in mind. Don't just and it's and that's me being ethical. That's me with my values.
Yeah.
It's like don't don't hone in on the big fish
Yeah.
if you don't know what the consequences will be, or if you're just going to be like, well, you know what, de aquí me lavé las manos, like I've washed my hands from the situation, I made my big buck and I'm out. Still be very conscious of how you're getting all of your information. Is the research really research? Do your due diligence when you're using artificial intelligence. I tell folks that all the time. Like, yes, a lot of us now know how to use chat GPTs or the Geminis or the Claudes, but there's a lot of hallucinations on those types of platforms, which is another fancy way of saying false information.
Mm.
And so you can't just take it with a grain of salt. You have to do your research. Like it's uplifting a lot of the heavy work, but you still have to do your due diligence and
Mm-hmm.
make sure that you're not just copying and pasting things
Yeah.
to so you can be more productive in other things, or just to get that done and then check it off the list.
Right. That's a perfect segue into what I want to ask you about next, which is, um, what do you think are some of the best uses of AI that you see in building a business, for example? Yeah, like what are some examples that you have seen where people have used AI and has really helped them in creating their business?
Sure. Before we go into that question, I just want to make it very clear before folks are using these type of tools to scale their business or create and start their business, be very, very aware of the biases and prejudices that are within AI.
Mm-hmm.
Our folks are not the ones that are building them. Our folks are not the ones that are creating them. Our folks are not the ones that are being tested to use the different types of AI platforms. And when I speak AI, I speak large language models specifically. So Chat GPTs, Microsoft Copilots, Claudes, because those are the ones that I use on a daily basis. And I say all this to say because it's not our brains that are being picked.
Mm-hmm.
Zuckerberg last week announced his AI advisory board, all white men,
Mm-hmm. Not
not one
surprised.
woman, not person of color, no neurodivergency in there. There's nothing. And so that means that they are leading the way of how this fourth industrial revolution is going to take place. And that's very scary because you do not have the diversity that you need to have in these types of machinery that everyday folk like you and I are using.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Within the biases that you will see is sometimes false information. We have seen when it comes to AI, they're actually using AI. They're doing these tests right now. Folks that are waiting their sentencing from jail, right? So you got convicted of a crime. They're seeing how AI is implementing the punishment. But if we're going to solely rely on data, the data itself already has bias because we know men of color are 4 times more likely to get arrested than a white man.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're using the times that they've already gotten arrested, if you're using zip codes, if you're using cities, all of this, sure, it's data, but it's biased data.
Mm-hmm.
And so a white male getting convicted is for sure going to have less time, even with the machine, than a man of color.
Mm-hmm.
And these are like, this is just a test, but meaning that they're probably going to start using it sooner than later.
Yeah.
Um, so just being very aware, even when you are using ChatGPT or the co-pilots, I do a lot of imagery. Like I'm creating a workshop, I'm creating different workshops right now, and I use the imagery within Copilot as well as ChatGPT. And when you put in um, create an image of an entrepreneurial leader in tech, it's not going to be the Latina that comes out.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not going to be a woman that comes out.
Yeah.
So again, who are the folks that are creating these? Who are the Zuckerbergs that are on these advisory boards that are saying this is okay?
Mm-hmm.
So when I do these imageries, I have to consistently be prompting, meaning I have to consistently be very, very descriptive and rewrite my descriptions until I get the image that I want. Because I'm doing a self-care visualization meditation, and I had put create a design of a Latina resting in a bubble bath. It came back with a mariachi hat, a woman with size D boobs, and then little bubbles, and then having some type of like tacos on the side.
What?
I didn't know. We're not doing that.
Oh my
We're not
God.
doing that. And
Yeah.
so again, it goes to show like we are not the ones that are in these spaces that are creating, that are beta testing. This
Yeah.
is why it's so imperative. So if you do decide to use it for your business, whether that's creating a marketing strategy, whether that's creating content for whatever social media platform you use, TikTok, Instagram, whether that's creating a proposal, whether for a future client that's going to sign off and pay you, whether that's editing for podcasting or creating a podcast strategy for your next season,
Yeah.
make sure that again you're not just taking what it gives you at face value. Really do the inner work. My LLMs now know that my branding is very Spanglish, so my output is Spanglish.
Mm.
But I've had to train my co-pilots and my Claudes and my chat GPTs to sound like me.
Yeah.
And yeah, sometimes it's taking me more time.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know, again, like I know the bros in Silicon Valley don't have to do that,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I have to do that because I want to make sure that one, I sound the most authentic that I can, but also so I'm feeding this machine to realize it's not just the Brads and the Chads that we all sound like. We also speak Spanglish. We also have this dialect. We also have this tone. this is my brand.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's pretty much reconstructing the algorithm
Yeah. Yeah.
when you use these.
Yeah, that's such a good point. It's such a good point. I don't think it's something that is very easy to think about when you're thinking about AI and how you use it. Is I think there's a lot of questions around how to prompt it, right? But then how do you prompt as a Latina or as a woman of color? How do you prompt it to help you in a way give you an authentic response or answer, or and like you said, you have to retrain it, like literally like train it. And so I think that that's a really good point to make. It's like it's not just asking it a question and then taking what it gives you, but like knowing that this is not with your, especially as a woman or a Latina or any woman of color, not with your I like your voice in mind. So
Mm-hmm.
that's really, I'm glad that you mentioned that. Um, so I do want to go into why do you think it's important for us? Like I think that being that AI is booming, like it's all over the place. But like, why do you feel that it's important to learn about it as a community and as a collective? Like, why is that important?
I think it's here to stay. It's
Mm,
not going to go away. I don't know how long it's going to take us to get folks into positions of advisory boards where
mm-hmm,
they can actually make the decisions and say, no, I don't think this is right. I think this is wrong. Uh, I was just at a ASE summit and they had talked about just Latinos being in advisory boards and how many advisory boards have, right, like certain folks within their advisory boards to make these big decisions. And out of the 50 organizations that were there, not one had raised their hand.
mm-hmm.
And that's beyond alarming, because again, this is how these big corporations are able to get away with everything that they're getting away with
Yeah,
and not having any repercussions or not having any type of
yeah,
consequences, right? Because it's all the same people that are making the same moves, and they're just like, yeah, we're going to keep doing whatever we want. And so if we're able to move as a collective and move as a community, I mean, Latinos make the fifth largest nation.
mm-hmm,
So if you were to take all Latinos and create our own country, we would be the fifth largest economy.
mm-hmm,
So when people say your dollar doesn't matter, if you're the part of the fifth largest economy, it does matter.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Latinas bring in $175.2 billion into the US economy. So when people tell you, like, I need it to be very important that when people are just like, oh, it's just your little business, or oh, like your decision does it, like, you can buy it wherever, like, really be conscious about the things that you are doing, because who are you really, really serving? Where's this money really going to? Who are you really giving your or like, who are you giving your dollars to in corporate America?
mm-hmm.
And if we're able to move and learn as a collective, as una comunidad, as the fifth largest nation financially, imagine how much more powerful we could be with having the same education
Mm-hmm.
and the same tools and the same resources
Yeah,
that all of these Silicon people folk have,
yeah,
or everyone around them.
yeah. We could have our own economy, right? Like we could
Well,
bring our
there's
own
her name.
economy.
Her name is Erin, and Black woman, and she created Black Chat GPT. She just launched it on June 19th.
Mm-hmm,
I got to see her speak at a panel at it's called Diversitech. It's a tech summit that takes place in Philadelphia, and I was just like starstruck. Like, this woman was like, okay, I don't know how long this is going to take for corporate America to get their ish together, but I'm going to make sure that my folks and my people in my community are good, that they see representation. I'm not saying it's perfect. There's still going to be some kinks that we need to work out, but I need to launch this for us.
mm,
And then I started thinking, why why can't we do something like that?
mm-hmm.
Why
Yeah,
don't we have something like that?
yeah. I love
And
that.
ours, right, there'd be a lot of kinks for us to work out. Right? Central Americans speak very differently than South
Yeah,
Americans.
yeah,
Then our brothers and sisters on the islands, like, we all have different dialects, we all have different cultures. Um, but still, it would be a great base for us, I believe, to have.
yeah,
And so just seeing a woman, a Black woman, start Black Chat GPT is awe inspiring.
yeah. That's incredible. I had not heard of that. So, if you have any links to that, I'd be happy to share in the show notes to learn more about Black Chat GPT, because I had not heard of that. But it's not. I love that we cannot wait for these people to include us, right? Like, we're just gonna make our
Because they're
version.
not going to
Yeah,
include us,
yeah,
right? They didn't even include white women. What makes you like?
yeah.
We're definitely not on that list.
Yeah, yeah. So if whatever information you have about that, I'd love to link it in the show notes. And I know all the books we mentioned, I'll put in there as well. Okay, so let's. I'd like to talk a little bit about leveraging AI. So, like, the tools that are out there. You mentioned you use Copilot, which I haven't really heard too much about. Um, I know for me, I use it in podcast editing too. I don't know what it's called, but their new AI robot or whatever, it's called Underlord for my podcast.
Mhm.
But there's so many different AI like tools and machines out there. But what are some ways that people can leverage AI for their professional development, or everyday personal use? Um, and what are some ways that we can start doing that?
Yeah. So it just depends on what you're really trying to do. And I say that because if you're a business owner or a professional, what is your profession in? What is your business in? Your platforms that you're using for AI might look very different than mine do.
Mm-hmm.
As I had mentioned prior to, I heavily use large language models because I do a lot of consulting and I do a lot of education. And those are the ones that folks right now they're trying to integrate those into corporate America.
Mm-hmm.
So just to let you know, Copilot is Microsoft Copilot.
Mm-hmm.
So Microsoft Copilot and ChatGPT, which is part of OpenAI, are run on a very similar platform because who was it? Microsoft just finished giving trillions of dollars to OpenAI, which is ChatGPT. Another one you can use that's my personal favorite. It's called Claude, CLAUDE .ai. That's another LLM. Microsoft Copilot and ChatGPT will give you imagery. So right, like again, I create a Latina in a yoga pose with curly hair. Like you can do those on those two platforms. And then another one is Gemini. Gemini is Google based.
Mm-hmm.
So that, and I would say play around with them. A lot of them they'll sometimes give you similar output, but the deliverance is very different. So if you're looking for something more bulleted points, Gemini's the way to go. If you want something that's more friendly, approachable, and that sounds more resonating and more human-like, I love to go to Claude. And then something that's in between is the Chat GPTs. But when I show folks how to use it to start their business, it's, what is your brand? What is your persona? What type of avatar is your business trying to market to? What type of marketing are you going to implement in first due to your budget? Because as you know, marketing takes up so much money and so much time.
Mm-hmm.
So what is going to be your marketing plan? What social media platform are you using the most? Are you creating more for TikTok or are you creating more for LinkedIn? Because even that content is going to look very, very different. So just really getting down to the nitty gritty when it comes to you and your business, like what is my avatar? What is my personal branding? What is my story? What is my marketing plan? What are the steps really for my marketing plan? It can help you come out with a marketing strategy. Even for podcasting, like, what do I want to do this season? What is going to be the call to action for me? And have it recommend for you. And just because it's making the recommendations doesn't mean that it's the end all be all. I still say, listen to your intuition. Like, this is feeding off of everyone who inputs their answers, right? Or anyone who inputs their questions. But at the end of the day, you are a human being and you still have gut instincts. And so if it's telling you do A and B, but you're thinking B and C resonates a little more with me, then do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. The one so one of the ways that I've used AI recently is, so I have it in my podcast editor, and I'm a very I think out when I think out loud or I'm brainstorming, I just say things essentially the essence of what I want to say or like what I'm trying to convey. And I just say, can you make this more sound more professional or clear or use something that makes it come together? And I usually takes what I said and puts it in a more clear, concise, professional, whatever word I used, output. And I'm like, okay. And then from there, I usually edit words out but it just
Yeah,
makes it easier for me to kind of brainstorm a little bit because I realize I'm not very good with thinking or saying it in a way that is demands the room or is like very influential or something like that. So
sure.
I use it to kind of help me put in the right words or I'm like use the same
So,
tone, right? And so that's and usually it helps. I remember I did like a podcast episode where I was sponsoring myself essentially.
mhm,
And
love it.
I made my own like sponsored little like commercial and I was like, okay, well I literally just said I want to promote my um this program that I have and let them know that it's a limited time offer and it's this much and this is what they can do. And then it just gave me a script and I still edit because usually that's that
Of
what
course.
comes back is okay, but you know you still want it to um, feel authentic to you. So I edited a little bit, but it does help in not using your entire brain. And I guess, um,
Like even as simple as everyday things like emails. Like
yeah,
there are days in my head where I'm either capped out, I can't think, or I'm like, you know what? I know I'm worth this amount. I'm in negotiation at this point for this contract. How do I sound a little more professional? This is how much I want to get paid. This is the value that I'm bringing. This is the call to action, right? Like I bullet point that a little bit. And sometimes I even write it and then I'll say optimize this. And then it'll give me a great, what I'm like, you were like, it enhances
right.
what you are trying to say. It's not to say that you don't know what you're saying. I mean,
Yeah.
clearly, right? Like I know how much I know how much I'm worth. I know the value that I bring, and I know the call to action that I can give your audience at the end of the day. It's just sometimes I'm either at capacity in my brain, or sometimes I'm like, I know that there's a more powerful word. Let's throw it in here. Let's see what comes out. What I will also just warn folks is if you are a creative, so if you are a storyteller or a musician or even, depending on what type of blog you're trying to create, be very, very mindful that once you throw things into these AI tools or AI platforms, it becomes public property because that's how they train
Hmm.
their platforms. So you never know if it's going to give the screenplay, right, or la película that you wrote, same suggest like it's going to suggest your creation to someone else who's asking a question
Mm.
about how to write a book or how to write a screenplay or how to write a movie. So just be very, very mindful when it comes to your intellectual property that once you throw things in there, it's not yours.
Mm. That's a very good point to make. I like that you said that because I think that's not something I knew. I mean, I kind of sort of knew it, but like you sort of kind of put it in the back of your head. You're like, oh, like what could go wrong, right? But it kind of goes back to what we were talking about the rules and regulations and sort of like there's still even I know for trademarks and patents, for example, there's a lot of new situations coming up because of AI and people are like figuring out how to include AI created anything into the process of trademarking and patenting. So,
I mean, just today alone, it was announced that Universal Music Group, Warner Music Group, and Sony Music Entertainment filed lawsuits against the two AI platforms called Udio,
mm,
and Suno, which are music generation startups.
mm,
And they're filing lawsuits against them because they allegedly illegally trained their AI models on copyrighted material.
mm,
So that's
yeah,
what I like, again, I'm writing an email and I have no shame with, right?
yeah,
Like please make this sound more professional or optimize this email, because I know that that information to me, it's not, I know my value, I know what I can bring to the table. Like that's not something that I don't mind sharing. Now, if I was writing a whole ass book or a movie, I definitely don't want any of that creation
Mm-hmm.
to be part of it, or the music industry. And so, yeah, just that was taught, that was that music art, or I'm sorry, that article on the music infringement and the legalities just came out today.
Yeah.
So just be very, very mindful of what you are putting in there. Definitely do not be putting in your mailing address, your social security number, your bank accounts.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. So yeah, just be very, very careful with everything that you put in there.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you for that very needed information. Don't put your whole manuscript into into the AI tool.
Yeah, like if you need help with a paragraph maybe, or
Yeah.
even a few sentences, I get that. But yeah, please do not be putting in a whole
Yeah.
manuscript.
Yeah. Honestly, like one of my just typical everyday uses is, like you said, writing emails. But what I'll do is, because it's a podcasting tool, I will record what I want to say, however I want to say it. Like I don't need to sound, I just say what I want to say. And then I'm like, can you make
Mhm.
it a little bit more professional? Please remember to stay friendly and whatever. And then it'll like basically summarize what I'd said. And it was like maybe an 8 minute voice note that like will summarize into an email. And it usually sounds like me because it still uses my words and what I
Right.
said. Um,
And you're putting in what you're trying to sell
yeah,
at the end of the day. So you're just like, I'm not putting in everything that's in this package, but right, like you're not putting in the lessons that are in that package.
yeah.
You're just labeling what that package entails. So it's completely different.
Yeah, yeah. So that's
Yeah.
just one of the, it's just quick and I don't have to write a whole email. I just like to say it. And sometimes for me, that's just easier to then, because it used to take me honestly an hour sometimes or even more to write an email because
Mm-hmm.
it was, I'm like, okay, how do I say it this way or that way? And now I just speak it out, whatever I want to say, and then prompt it to sound friendly, professional, and whatnot. And it gives back a better version of what I just said. All right, Yovana. So let's see. I'm trying to see if there's any other things we haven't covered. Is there any information that you feel like people should really know in terms of AI and to really look into it, and if there's anything you want the listener to take away, what would that be?
I think there might be a few takeaways. One would be, everyone speaks on how AI is going to make you more productive. It's going to make you more creative. You can do so much with AI. And I come from a very different standpoint. I come from the point of, use AI to reclaim your time. You can definitely be more productive. No shade to those people, but use all the time that you're getting back to do things that connect you back to you being who you essentially are. So, and that's simple, right? Go take that nap. You deserve that nap.
Mm-hmm.
We work way too hard to not rest.
Mm-hmm.
Go read that chapter of that book that you got from the library that you checked out or that you bought 3 weeks ago, and you still haven't opened up the book because you don't have the time. Take your dog on an actual walk,
Yeah.
right? Don't just put your dog in the yard, leave them outside for 10 minutes and be like, that's good enough. No, 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 no. You and your dog deserve to be out in the sun, soaking up the rays, y la energía. Take your little water bottle, hydrate, get grounded. Come back to who you are. Go have that chisme little like that little chisme that you wanted to with your amiga in the park. Like, just do things that bring you joy, and it doesn't have to be anything extravagant. It can be something very minimal. And so that's why I use AI all the time, is because I love reclaiming my time back, and just, right, whether that's taking my nap or after this, I'm gonna watch trash TV. Let's be honest, I love 90 Day Fiance. Like, it's my jam.
I'm watching Perfect Match right now. So the
Oh
trashiest.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean Bridgerton just finished, right? So like
Oh
I
yeah.
have to catch up on something now. So So yeah, just use AI, again, like it may make you more productive, like you had just talked about, Bea, how you went from doing something for hours to being able to bring it down and optimize it to 20
Yeah.
minutes. Okay, so now with those 40 minutes, like, you know what? How about you actually take that lunch break? Let's start there. Like,
Mm.
actually enjoy your food for those 40 minutes and tranquila, have a great time. Another thing that I want to say is don't use it to your advantage. So I speak on me having this chronic condition. It's called PMDD, which stands for premenstrual dysphoric disorder. And that means between 1.5 to 2 weeks before my period, my serotonin and my dopamine levels drop
Mm.
significantly.
Mm-hmm.
So my anxiety is on 10, the depression is very real. It's just very hard for me to function, do just everyday things. And so, and a fact of PMDD, 38% of women who have PMDD, because their levels are so low, end up having suicide attempts.
Mm.
And so what I have done is leveraged AI to be able to, right, construct these awesome emails, help me with the strategy of clients, help me make sure that they're on the right path. That way when, there's 2 days that I have to be in bed and I can't really think and I can't really function, I can give my body the rest that it deserves and not feel guilty about resting.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been able to leverage technology to be able to give back to myself, because my body deserves it. I'm a human being. I'm not a human doing.
Yeah.
And so being able to leverage these tools to, again, just bring you back to you, whatever that means for you. And for me, it's honoring my body, accepting my chronic condition, and giving myself the best treatment that I holistically that I possibly can. And, getting into AI doesn't have to be this like big thing or this extravagant thing. You can start off really small, and when we say talk about it with your community, like let's leverage our community, start small.
Mm-hmm.
My mom, I remember when I first started talking to her about AI and how I would use it, she was like, "Oh, I would never hire you because that's cheating. You're not putting in the work." And I'm like, "Okay, well that's like an immigrant mentality,
Mm-hmm.
right? Tienes que trabajar duro. You have to work hard. You have
Mm.
to put in all the hours, right?
Yeah.
And so I realized, oh, there's going to be mind shift here that we're going to have to work with you. And
Yeah.
so just little by little, like not getting upset, realizing, oh, this is immigrant mentality. This is boomer mentality too. So we
Mm-hmm.
have an immigrant and a boomer simultaneously. This is going to take a bit of work. And so now all of a sudden this woman is the one who's sending me articles on AI, and she's like, I was watching Good Morning America this today and this is what they said and this was the article they had sent out. And so because I've been able to talk to her about it and even show her how to use it and show her just very simple examples, she has come and done a complete 180.
Yeah.
And so now she's supporting me, right, in my endeavor. And she's like, did you talk about this in your newsletter? Is this good for your newsletter? Because I have an AI newsletter.
Yeah.
And I'm like, look at this woman, from going to not hiring me to literally her becoming an assistant for
Yeah.
me
She's your
without.
ambassador. Yeah.
She's literally my ambassador, and she's going to be 64. So it's just like, it's never too late, and it doesn't have to be this grandiose thing. You can just start from the house. My dad, I shared this story before. My dad had a review, and same thing. He knew that he wanted to use certain words to sound right, to be more impactful and to be more resonating in corporate America. And he was like, Mija, do you think you can help me? And I was like, look, this is what AI is for, Dad, because I might not always be here. Maybe I might be traveling, maybe I might be sick, I don't know. So let me teach you how to use Claude. And so he put in the way what he wanted to say and what value he brought. And of course it enhanced it, right? We said put it in a more professional but friendly tone, optimize this, and it gave us the words that he needed, right? He's in sales, I'm not in sales. I don't know the terminology, I don't know the range of it,
Yeah.
but being able to have him now. And it's funny because he was like, oh yeah, the other day I went to go talk to my IT guy and we were talking about AI and this, and I'm like, okay.
Now he can put
but
workshops too, right?
but now he's out here, right? But like now he's out here feeling more confident, right? Feeling that he's part of this corporate community because of the fact that he's able, that he has been able to use these LLMs to have him sound a little more professional. English is not his first language, but that doesn't mean that he can't leverage up
Mm-hmm.
and be part of the same status quo. And again, let's go back to the why is it so important for the community to learn as a whole, right? Like some of us are immigrants, some of us are firstborn, and so, right, even with university and college, like sometimes there's just words that you don't know, or sometimes there's just
Yeah.
terminology that you don't get, or sometimes the range of your vocabulary isn't going to be as strong because you just don't have the time to read. So you have to leverage these tools to have you, right, like be part of that be part of that realm, or be part of that world, of your corporate world or of your entrepreneurial world. And so seeing my parents, one being a boomer and one being a Gen Xer, having them be so hesitant, one to the point where she was like, I would never hire you, to, like you were saying, full-blown brand ambassador over here, and the other one feeling confident when he walks into the workplace, has been pretty awesome to see. And so when you do start changing, make sure to bring those that are around you with you.
Mm,
And that's where we start with our community.
yeah. Well, that's amazing. Well, I want to thank you, Yovana, so much for bringing this conversation to the forefront and to really l- making it a point to talk about AI and to inform ourselves about AI and what is out there and how do we use it and how are we also not included and how do we make sure that we are included and how do we bring ourselves into this new technology, because it's not just about using it for our businesses but also about making sure that it's ethical and that it incorporates everybody and not just like the people who are making it, which of course not surprised, right? With the tech world and Silicon Valley, like of course it's mostly white bros who are in those spaces. So thank you for bringing this information to us. Before we wrap, where can people find you and how can people work with you, and how can we get in touch with you?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that the links are going to be on the on this podcast episode, but I'm currently working on two different things. I'm working on creating a basics to AI and prompt engineering course that I want to have out hopefully by August. I haven't seen any Latina persona be out there, and so I'm being very intentional with, again, let's speak on the biases, let's speak on what AI is, and let's really start learning how to speak to these machines. That way we get the best output possible,
Mm,
and showing examples, right? Show, like, being able to be Latina and show those type of examples, because I want to show the biases that we had talked about, even with the imagery, and not just right the language that comes out. So hopefully that one will be out by the end of August. I have a wait list for that one. I also have a wait list for AI powered meditations. I did a beta testing at the Latinas in Tech Summit of 2024. So this past May, and it was I did a visualization meditation, but it was all powered through AI.
mm,
And it was for Latina leaders specifically. And it went so well that I actually came up with 9 total different meditations. So I'm going to have one for compassion, one for our natural beauty, embracing our natural beauty, one for Latina leaders, another one for self compassion. And the list goes on. And so I also have a wait list for that. And where I'm most active for social media is on LinkedIn. So you can just find me putting my name inside of the search. But I also am girl, I'm trying. I mean, even with AI, it can get too much.
yeah.
I'm trying to be a little bit better with my Instagram. But if you're more, like, I know folks sometimes are more on Instagram, but if you really just need to get in touch with me ASAP, it's going to be on LinkedIn. But my Instagram is AI.Latina.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Joanna. I will make sure to include those in the show notes. And I want to thank you again for coming on and sharing everything you know. And that sounds incredible. Those AI courses and specifically the prompt one, because I think that those are skills, honestly, also to be able to learn how to prompt an AI machine and get the best possible output. So sign up for the courses. The wait list will be in the show notes. So thank you so much,
Oh, and
Ivana.
let me also I forgot to mention, let me also share with you my newsletter. The newsletter is a curated newsletter. So I first speak on AI updates, and then afterwards I give some entrepreneur tips, or maybe like my journey, and then self-care journey. And then another thing that I have put is Jefa shout outs. So I always part of the community, right? Like, let's shout out one another. Let's give kudos to one another. And then just let you know what the updates are in my business. And I decided to do that. It's called unapologetic business updates inside the newsletter, because I'm like, you know what? We're not being calladitas, son más bonitas. Like,
Yeah.
we are tooting our own horns, we're celebrating ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So time to let folks know what we're updated with. But yes, I would love for folks to see the newsletter, because there's, like I said, we talk about AI, we talk about entrepreneurship, and
Mm-hmm.
also self-care.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to sign up for that newsletter because that sounds amazing. So make sure you send that over to me. So thank you so much. And hopefully you come back soon.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate everyone for listening.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Be a Boss Coaching Podcast. To connect with me and the other featured guests of this podcast, remember to come over to the show notes and visit us at beabosscoaching.com. Remember that you don't have to do this alone. If you have any self-doubt or uncertainties, there's so many places and communities and resources out there for you to tap into. You just need to take action. I can't wait to meet you, and I'll see you in the next episode.